I speak 9 languages,
the girl said proudly. At first, the millionaire laughed. To him, it sounded like nothing more than a child's joke. But by the end of that day, he would not be laughing at all. The elevator crept upward floor by floor, as if mocking her impatience. In her chest, nerves twisted into a knot, the same knot she had felt as a child whenever she was surrounded by people speaking languages she couldn't understand. But that girl no longer existed. Now, at 16, with a worn blue backpack slung over her shoulder and shoes that had seen better days, she was ready to prove how much she had changed. When the elevator doors opened, a different world awaited her. A hallway stretched out before her, its thick carpet swallowing her footsteps, the walls hung with abstract art, and golden lamps gleaming like sculptures. A secretary in a sleek suit looked her up and down with thinly veiled disdain. The girl wore a simple pink t-shirt, faded jeans, and sneakers nearly falling apart, yet she walked tall. She had already learned that dignity is not stitched into clothing but carried in one's heart. The secretary led her to a pair of glass doors and opened them. Inside was a vast conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows framing the entire city glittering beneath the afternoon sun. At the long, polished wooden table sat 4 executives, every one of them in a tailored suit, every one radiating the kind of confidence that comes from believing you already know everything. At the head of the table sat a silver-haired man with sharp eyes and a wide, mocking smile. He studied her as if he already knew the ending to this story. "So," he said in a deep, commanding voice, "you are the candidate." He didn't ask her name. He didn't offer her a seat. His colleagues smirked, waiting for the entertainment to begin. The girl tightened her grip on her backpack strap. She knew how she looked, a poor teenager out of place in this palace of power. But she also knew she carried something inside her that no one could see yet, something that would change everything. "Yes, sir," she replied firmly. The millionaire leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Then tell us, what makes you special? What could possibly surprise us?" The room grew heavy. Their stares pierced her skin like needles. For a moment, she wanted to shrink, to hide. But instead she drew a deep breath and answered without hesitation, "I speak 9 languages." For a heartbeat, silence reigned. And then the room erupted in laughter. The millionaire threw back his head and roared, pointing at her as if she had told the funniest joke in the world. His colleagues followed. One covered his mouth, another laughed openly. The woman smirked with cruelty. To them, she was just a naive little girl spinning lies. But the girl said nothing. She simply began to speak. First fluent English, then French, then Russian, Arabic, Mandarin, Japanese, Italian, German, and Portuguese. Each language flowed with perfect rhythm and sound, each accent polished by years of practice. But these weren't just words. Each tongue carried a story. French reminded her of the wealthy woman her mother once cleaned for, who corrected her patiently as she washed dishes. Arabic recalled the kind market trader who gave her fruit whenever she pronounced a word correctly. Mandarin brought back the image of an elderly man who wrote characters for her on scraps of napkin at his stall. Each language was not learned in a classroom, but carved from hardship, from hunger, from years of listening and repeating in secret. Every word was a scar transformed into strength. The laughter died, first into chuckles, then into silence. The millionaire who had mocked her now leaned forward, mouth slightly open, eyes wide with disbelief. His colleagues stared wordlessly, transfixed. By the time she finished, the silence in the room was so deep it felt as if even the city outside had paused to listen. "How?" the millionaire whispered at last, his voice stripped of arrogance. "How did you learn all that?" She touched her backpack, heavy not with wealth, but with years of effort. "As a child," she began softly, "my mother took me with her when she worked cleaning houses. While she scrubbed floors and kitchens, I listened to the families speaking languages I didn't know. I hid behind doors and repeated their words like echoes. Some laughed at me, others ignored me, but a few taught me simple phrases, which I wrote down and kept like treasures. Later, when my mother worked in a market, I realized every tourist was a teacher. Even if someone gave me only 3 words, I would repeat them until they lived in my dreams. We had no money for schools or books, but I was hungry. Hungry to learn, hungry to break free of the destiny that seemed written for me." Her voice wavered, but her back stayed straight. My mother came home every night exhausted, her hands rough from endless work. But when she heard me repeating words she didn't understand, she smiled as if her sacrifice finally had meaning. She would tell me, "I sweep floors, daughter, but you will clear paths that no one has walked before." That phrase has lived in my heart ever since. When she finished, she saw the millionaire's eyes glistening. His mocking smile had vanished, replaced by something far rarer, respect. He spoke slowly, almost reverently. "You have something money cannot buy," he said. "Discipline, resilience, extraordinary talent. The scholarship is yours, and if you want it, a place in my company as well." The girl could not find words. She simply smiled, not from pride, but from relief. She knew in that moment that every sacrifice, every night whispering words to herself in the dark, every tear her mother shed had been worth it. The executives began to clap, hesitantly at first, then with growing strength, and the millionaire who had laughed the loudest was the first to rise and applaud her standing. She adjusted her old backpack and walked toward the door. Before leaving, she turned to look out through the enormous windows. The city stretched before her, dazzling and endless like an ocean of possibility. She knew this was not the end of her struggle, but the beginning of a much greater story. She remembered her mother teaching her never to fear, remembered her notebooks filled with scribbles and alphabets stained with grease and dust, remembered every moment of ridicule when she mispronounced a word, and she realized all of it had carried her here. That day she learned something she would never forget. The world laughs first because it does not understand, but when it finally understands, it falls silent, and in that silence lives the dignity of every dream fulfilled. As she closed the door behind her, she knew she would never again walk with her head bowed, because no matter how worn her clothes, no matter how old her backpack, she carried within her not only 9 languages, but the strength of an entire life's struggle. The lesson is clear. It doesn't matter where you come from, what you own, or how you look. What truly opens doors is perseverance, discipline, and the burning desire to learn. The girl had no wealth, no expensive books, no teachers, but she had something far more powerful, the determination to rise beyond the limits imposed on her. The millionaire, with all his power, learned that greatness does not always come dressed in luxury. Respect is not bought with money or titles, but earned through actions. The invisible effort, the long nights of study, the silent sacrifices, the unseen persistence holds more value than applause. The world often mocks before it understands, but once it does, it falls silent. And in that silence shines the dignity of those who never gave up. So never let the doubts or laughter of others extinguish your voice. If you have a dream and the will to fight for it, one day those who laughed will have no choice but to recognize your triumph. This is the story of a girl who, despite mockery and hardship, proved that dreams know no barriers. Remember, they may laugh, they may doubt, but they can never stop you if you walk forward with discipline, passion, and faith. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because someone out there who feels small today may need this reminder that nothing is impossible.